In response to our contention 1, significance 1, where we stated that sex workers are treated unfairly by the current justice system, and that the same system is not built to give aid or protection to sex workers after abuse or rape, the negative states that our current justice system does protect them by making prostitution illegal. However, to that I say first and foremost, making something illegal is not protecting those who take part in it. In fact, it only makes it legal for our government to do them harm. However, what making prostitution illegal does do is make it impossible for a prostitute to take care of themselves by going to the police when they've been abused or raped, things that could have been taken care of or prevented had they been protected by the federal government or by a privatized business that was regulated by the federal government. This has been proven to be the case by New Zealand, where according to New Zealand's Prostitution Reform Bill, the sex worker has safeguarded human rights, is protected from exploitation, is promoted to have healthcare, occupational safety, and health. The same bill also creates an environment conducive to public health and protects children from exploitation in relation to prostitution. Due to the lack of law, the lack of federal regulation and protection, we cannot base the reality of legal prostitution on any current U.S. examples because not since 1910 has prostitution or sex work been protected by law. The negative asserts that making something illegal protects the people taking part in it, that keeping it legalized would be dangerous. This is false. Not only would it be safer occupation if legalized, continued criminalization will only maintain the danger that sex workers go through every day. In response to our contention 1, significance I, point 2, where we stated that keeping prostitution illegal would imprison sex workers in an underground economy, our esteemed opponent states that keeping prostitution illegal will keep prostitutes from being forced into an underground economy. However, they back this statement with no actual evidence. They quote a woman previously in the sex worker business, but the quote has absolutely nothing to do with underground economy of prostitutes. However, I will reiterate that criminalizing prostitution does in fact force sex workers into an underground, untaxed, and unprotected economy that can easily be exploited. The negative has supplied no real evidence negating our original argument, therefore there is nothing to prove against. Legalizing prostitution will force employers to pay sex workers with a paycheck, taxable, and protected under the Fair Labor Standards Act. In contention 1, harms 1, where we state that the prostitution is unsafe without legal guidelines, our opponent states that prostitution is unsafe even while legal, arguing that it doesn't reduce violence. However, as we stated in Plank 2 and expounded on in Plank 3, sex workers will only be allowed to work in legal government-authorized establishments, and that authorization will not come without protections for both the client and the employee, ensuring the safety of both. They make the argument that the job is unsafe, but we've already proven that untrue by testimonials from sex workers in the Netherlands in Contention 2, Workability 1, Section 1, where men and women working in the trade have claimed to have marginally better working conditions and felt safer and healthier than those working on the streets. The negative claims that legalizing prostitution will not do anything to lower the violence that sex workers receive. However, in a government-authorized and checked facility, this cannot be true. Keeping sex workers on the street in unchecked, unprotected environments is the only way that the rate of violence doesn't change. The negative goes to argue on the same point that the 2010 study in Papua New Guinea's capital that showed that 50% of interviewed sex workers claimed they were raped by either a client or police officer is not so much an argument of whether or not we should legalize prostitution, and more so a call to fix Papua New Guinea's justice system. So I'll bring it a little closer to home. According to HG.org, prostitution is one of the most dangerous professions in the country. 204 out of every 100,000 prostitutes die a year. On average, a sex worker in the U.S. will be physically abused once a month. This isn't a problem of our justice system, nor is it a problem of Papua New Guinea's. It is a problem of prostitutes not being protected by the government in any way and forced to do their work in unsafe working conditions where they're easily exploitable. The negative asserts that abuse of sex workers by clients and police is not an issue of legalization, but an issue of their justice system. However, I assert in response that if prostitutes being on the street is the root of the cause, their abuse is a symptom. Here, we don't need to readjust the justice system. We need to bring the people off their streets and into proper government-authorized places of work. On our contention 1, inherency, where we make the claim that 87% of sex workers are women in poverty, and therefore we should legalize the profession to decriminalize their line of work, the negative argues that even an unskilled, uneducated worker can get a job at McDonald's. However, the unemployment rate is never and will never be 0%. Also, the unemployment rate only takes into consideration people who are actively searching for jobs. In 2019, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. unemployment rate was 3.6%, rather low as far as percentages go. However, when you take into consideration that the population at the time was 329 million people, you begin to understand that the percentage of 3.6 actually represents 11 million Americans who are actively searching for jobs and actively trying to feed their families. It is unfair to those 11 million people to make the claim that in America, anyone can get a job. However, if we legalize prostitution, that is yet another massive group of people that could be in work protected by the FLSA and working in a government authorized and regulated business, saving those 87% of sex workers from another night of hunger. The negative asserts that going into prostitution is not a necessity when there are beginner level jobs that anyone can get. However, we as the affirmative state that it is unrealistic to say that everyone can get a job when there's obviously unemployment rate, and that legalizing prostitution could marginally decrease that percentage. On our contention 2, workability point 1, the negative claims that while we state how legalized prostitution has positively affected prostitutes in the Netherlands, legalized prostitution led to a rise in rape and sexual assault, citing the number of sex crimes last year compared to that in 2017 in the Netherlands. However, if you look at the number of rapes in the US, it has also been on the rise. According to Statistica.com in 2013, the lowest it has been in the decade prior, the number of reported rapes was 82,109. In 2014, it was 84,864, and if we skip ahead to 2018, the rate has steadily risen to 101,151. The UK is no different, steadily rising in 2013 to today. The rise in sex crimes in the Netherlands is not due to the legalization of prostitution, because prostitution is legal in both the US and the UK, and both countries are dealing with the same thing, beginning at the same time. The negative asserts that because of the legalization of prostitution in the Netherlands, there's been a rise in sex crimes. However, because the US and the UK are dealing with the same issue, this must be a case of correlation without causation. The rise in sex crime is not inherently because of prostitution, but something else. Therefore, our point of the prostitution working well in the Netherlands still stands. And finally, on our contention 2 advantages, point 1, where we stated that each state would benefit from the sales generated by the approved brothels. The negative makes the claim that this holds true to any job that a sex worker could get that wasn't prostitution, making it unnecessary to legalize it. However, firstly, I'll reiterate that it is not so easy for everyone to get a job when there's a 3.6% unemployment rate. Secondly, what we're referring to in point 1 of our advantages is the opening of an entirely new industry, not merely a few people getting jobs. The opening of government-authorized brothels would broaden our economy, bringing in even more revenue than it would have if a few sex workers found another means to make a paycheck. Thank you very much. Have a great day.